Housing isn't a commodity, it's the precondition for liberty. And in a world where millions live at the mercy of rent, the very notion of freedom has become hollow. But that's about to change, because once you lay down the foundations of housing sovereignty, you're no longer just building homes. You're building the infrastructure of emancipation, not shelter as charity. Shelter as a civic birthright, shelter as continuity, so that a person can exist across time without the threat of erasure every 30 days. The Minnesota Housing Sovereignty Act begins with 5 fabrication hubs producing 5,000 homes over 2 years. That's the pilot phase, measured, costed, grounded. But what matters isn't just what it builds. What matters is what it enables, because once the infrastructure is in place, the curve doesn't just rise, it spikes. It becomes exponential. Velocity replaces stagnation. Mass becomes momentum. The first 5,000 homes by 2030 are the roots. But the moment those fabrication hubs go live, Minnesota shifts from a state reacting to housing crises to one with a self-replicating housing engine. The more it builds, the faster and cheaper it becomes to build. Each year stabilizes supply chains, refines construction blends, sharpens workflows, and trains more skilled workers than the year before. This is not just scaling up, it's unlocking velocity. And velocity is what kills empires. So what does that look like in numbers? In 2027, the bill passes. By early 28, the first fabrication hubs begin construction in Red Wing, Northfield, Mankato, St. Cloud, and Duluth. With university partnerships, existing composite blends, and off-the-shelf 3D printer tech, construction and calibration should complete within 18 months. By 2029, all 5 hubs are operational. From 2029 to 2030, they each produce 500 homes per year, 2,500 annually, totaling 5,000 homes. That's the plateau before the spike. In 2031, each hub scales to 1,000 homes a year. Now 5,000 per year statewide. By 2033, with training pipelines in full swing, each hub prints 1,500 homes a year. That's 7,500 homes annually. But Minnesota doesn't stop there. By 2034, 2 new hubs come online in Rochester and Moorhead, strategically placed to extend coverage across the southern and western regions of the state. Rochester taps into Mayo Clinic's talent pool and drives materials innovation. Moorhead anchors Western logistics and draws talent from North Dakota State. With 7 hubs now active, each producing 1,500 homes a year, Minnesota reaches 10,500 homes annually. The curve steepens. In 2036, standardization and demand push each hub to 2,000 homes per year. 7 hubs, 14,000 homes annually. No speculation, no mortgages, no rent. Just housing, printed and delivered with dignity and sovereignty at the core. By 2040, Minnesota is producing between 25,000 and 30,000 homes every single year. Not because some market incentivized it, not because capital found it profitable, but because the people of this state decided that the foundation of liberty was worth building ourselves. That level of production isn't utopian. It's proportional. Minnesota has over 5.7 million residents and 2.3 million housing units. At least 600,000 of those are renter occupied. And over 250,000 households are cost burdened or locked in substandard housing. That's the moonshot. 250,000 sovereign homes by 2040. No mortgages, no landlords, no foreclosure risk, just homes. Durable, climate resilient, off-market, and owned by the people who live in them. But this isn't just about shelter. It's about time, the uninterrupted flow of one's life without the boot of someone else's income stream pressing down. When you break rent, you don't just free up a paycheck. You free up possibility, time to build, to rest, to raise, to heal, to become. This isn't just a housing program. It's a transfer of power, a civilizational pivot. When the state builds housing directly and residents lease to own with no more than 25% of their income, what's being constructed isn't just shelter. It's a new definition of freedom, one that cannot be foreclosed, revoked, or flipped by private equity firm overnight. The Enlightenment never promised us rent. It promised us liberty. But you cannot be free when your life resets every 30 days, when a landlord can evict you from your history, when your roof is someone else's dividend. Landlordism is not a function of capitalism. It is a pre-capitalist feudal holdover dressed up in contract law and spreadsheet logic. It's parasitism with a title deed. Housing sovereignty is what happens when we return to Enlightenment first principles, when the state doesn't subsidize the crisis, but ends it. When the purpose of government is not to manage markets, but to dissolve dependency. This is what it means to weaponize abundance, not in theory, but in steel, cement, and hempcrete. Not in books, but in blueprints. The state becomes not the enforcer of property rights, but the liberator from property rule. It acts not to expand itself, but to obsolete itself, to stand up infrastructure that no longer needs supervision. That's not socialism. That's evolution. By 2040, Minnesota can house every person who needs it. We can end rent in the state. We can bury landlordism beneath the foundation of a new era, one printed home at a time. And once we do it, the country will follow, because sovereignty spreads, liberty is viral. And once people see that it's possible to be free, truly free, with shelter as a right, not a lease, there will be no going back. This is not just the end of rent. It's the end of rule by dependence, the end of cycles that strip futures for profit. This is not just the end of capitalism. It is the beginning of something older and deeper, the Enlightenment fulfilled, not in lecture halls, but in neighborhoods, not with theory, but with a key to the door no landlord can lock. And when that key turns, the era of extraction ends and the age of becoming begins.